contemporary Pakistani artist, and what he's doing is bringing in the connection between slavery and cotton, but also introducing the idea of a kind of Asian dimension, which many people are not aware of. Does anybody know what the Asian dimension is in this story?
In India they had mills as well, or there was one.
Well, they did later on, many of them with machinery from Platts and Oldham, but even earlier than that.
They were sort of linked to the slaves, weren't they? Because a lot of them were taken off to plantations as well, weren't they?
Yes, that's the second bit of the story, but the first bit of the story is in actual Indian textiles themselves, which were transported by British merchants to West Africa because that's what West African consumers wanted. In the 18th century, Indian textiles were the best in the world, and British merchants took them to West Africa to exchange for pepper, gold, ivory, and human beings. Later on, partly thanks to the growth of the cotton industry in Greater Manchester, British textiles become dominant and sort of take over, with the extra dimension to the story, which is that the Indian textile industry is undermined by the growth of British textiles, which is, another dimension to it. So that's why this artist has juxtaposed Indian textiles against instruments of torture and exchange. These are brass manillas which were used as a currency, basically in West Africa, brought over by Europeans because there was great demand for iron and bronze and things for metalworking in West Africa. And then here we've got the interior of a cotton mill, and juxtaposed against it is an Indian cotton spinner. And it's a bit fuzzy, but if you look closely, you can see that he's spinning just using his foot. So, he hasn't got access to this kind of machinery. And making the point about the relationship between the Asian textile industry.
If India had this, really vibrant industry, but they could get the machines from us and the wherewithal from us through people going over and showing them how to use the machinery, I thought, how did they actually manage to sort of spin it to make the yarn? But they were doing it like this.
Like that, yeah.
Just with their own bodies.
Yeah.
Is it right that we tax the amount of business kind of thing?
Well, once the British Empire gets going and the British take over more in India, which happens much later, then there's all sorts of ways that the industry was undermined. Yes, quite. Actually the way people were treated and the way the economics was squeezed to the British advantage. Obviously, they didn't want people in their colonies competing against their other colonies and their own interests. So, that's all part of the bigger picture of empire later on. Yeah. But what's interesting is that there's this early dimension. And then we'll come on to the other point that you mentioned about Indians being brought over.
Right.